My name is Jiang Huay. I married into the Chen household 5 years ago, wholeheartedly serving my parents-in-law, managing internal and external affairs, turning an earl's manor that had nothing but a title and a family in decline into something prosperous and thriving. In the past, the Chen family earl's manor's accounts were always stretched thin at the beginning of each month, and by month's end we'd have to borrow money from all over. Now, the household expenses have become increasingly ample. People's monthly wages are never delayed, and even the treasury has gradually filled up halfway with rare treasures. I thought my efforts, my sincerity, would eventually earn me a shred of pity and respect from my husband Chen Jingyu. How laughable I was, truly too naive. When I held that gold embossed invitation in my hand, my fingertips were ice cold. It was for a ceremony to welcome the concubine Su Wanyue into the manor. But the invitation clearly stated the two characters equal wife. Equal wife, what does that mean in the strictly regulated Great Yin dynasty? It means she stands on equal footing with me, sharing the position of wife. This isn't just humiliation, it is a complete negation of my 5 years of devotion. What is going on here? I calmly placed the invitation on the desk and looked up at Chen Jingyu, who was sitting in the grand armchair leisurely sipping his tea. He wore a moon-white brocade robe, his features handsome, gentle and refined as jade. In the eyes of outsiders, he is a considerate young master of the Earl's manor, gentle and refined, but I know deep down that beneath that skin lies a cold and hypocritical heart. Chen Jingyu didn't even lift his eyelids, saying lightly, "Wanyue comes from a respectable background. She is the daughter of a prefect. Moreover, we're deeply in love. And we had an arranged marriage from childhood. Now that her family has fallen on hard times, how can I not care? Letting her enter the manor with the ceremony of an equal wife is also to preserve her dignity. Huayu, you are the legitimate wife, you should be more magnanimous." He spoke of being deeply in love and childhood engagement, as if it were natural. As though our 5 years of marital bond meant nothing in his eyes. My heart suddenly ached, not for his heartlessness, but for my own foolishness these past 5 years. 5 years ago, my Jiang family was condemned by the emperor over some trumped-up charges. My parents were exiled, our home was confiscated, and it was the Chen family's Earl Manor that stepped forward to take me in, allowing me, a criminal official's daughter, who should have been reduced to a government courtesan, to marry into a noble family. Everyone said Chen Jingyu was my savior, my benefactor who gave me a new life. I was so grateful that I dedicated everything I had to this family, to this man. But now it seems he was only interested in the connections and trade routes left behind by my Jiang family back then, using me to manage the Chen household and help him rise through the ranks step by step. Dignity. I let out a cold laugh, my voice carrying a hint of mockery that even I hadn't noticed. Do you think I, Jiang Huayu, have any dignity left to speak of in this earl's manor? Chen Jingyu finally raised his eyes, his brows slightly furrowed, seemingly displeased by my retort. Huayu, don't make a fuss. Miss Su has a gentle temperament and knows propriety. She would never compete with you for favor. You just need to fulfill your role as the earl's wife, manage the household affairs, and everything will be no different from before. No different from before. I repeated his words, finding them utterly absurd before. I was the only mistress of this manor, managing everything, holding exclusive claim to his status as husband. Now, he wants to bring another woman in to stand as my equal, and he calls this no different from before. My gaze slowly swept across his face. There wasn't a trace of guilt in his eyes, only a cold indifference that he took for granted. I suddenly understood he never loved me, nor had he ever truly respected me. These 5 years of marriage were salvation for me, but for him, merely exploitation. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the turmoil within, not wanting to show the slightest weakness before him. Fine, I understand. Since Master has made up his mind, then Huayu won't stand in the way. Only then did a hint of satisfaction appear on Chen Jingyu's face, as he picked up his teacup and took another sip. It is good that you've come to your senses. Don't worry, I won't treat you unfairly. My heart felt like it had been stabbed by an ice pick, both painful and cold. Did he think he could dismiss me with a few empty promises? I said no more and turned to leave the study. Outside the window, the spring scenery was bright and beautiful. Yet I felt everything around me was dark and gloomy. Returning to my own courtyard, I sent away all the maids and sat alone before my vanity. The woman in the mirror had willow leaf eyebrows and almond eyes, with delicate features though not stunningly beautiful. She possessed a gentle and touching charm. However, this face was now filled with exhaustion and numbness. I retrieved a locked sandalwood box from deep within my dresser. This was the only keepsake my mother left me when I married into the Chen household. The lock chain had long since rusted, yet I had never opened it. Now I finally made up my mind and pried open that old lock with a hairpin. Inside the box lay quietly a jade pendant carved with auspicious clouds and dragons, crystal clear throughout, smooth and lustrous as cream. I caressed the patterns on the jade pendant, my fingertips feeling its cool touch. Beneath the jade pendant was a yellowed letter with no signature on the envelope, only a line of elegant handwriting. To my daughter Huay, to be opened personally. This was my mother's handwriting. My heart pounded like a drum as I tremblingly opened the envelope. There wasn't much content in the letter, but every sentence pierced my heart. In the letter, Mother wrote that what my Jiang family suffered back then wasn't an ordinary corruption charge, but rather a frame-up by political enemies. Father was a famous general of the previous dynasty, who later served with unwavering loyalty, yet because he held military power and his achievements overshadowed his master, he was conspired against and framed by a fatuous ruler and treacherous officials. And Mother was actually the renowned pavilion master of the Cloud-Hidden Pavilion in the martial world. The Cloud-Hidden Pavilion was famous throughout the land for its unparalleled mastery of both medicine and poison, and even controlled the intelligence network of the dark forces in the Great Yin dynasty and surrounding nations. Back then, to protect my life, Mother had no choice but to relinquish her position as pavilion master, go into hiding under a false identity, and entrust me to the Chen family, with whom she had deep ties from the old days. She used the enormous treasure hidden by the Jiang family as bait to arrange this marriage. The letter also mentioned that before my Jiang family was exiled, we had already secretly transferred most of our wealth and influence, just waiting for the right time to resurface. And that jade pendant was the token of the Cloud-Hidden Pavilion, as well as the key to activating all our hidden operatives. The letter in my hand trembled slightly from gripping too hard. Yunyinj, that mysterious organization in the martial world rumored to control everything with a flip of their hand, turned out to be my maternal family. My mother was actually such a stunningly talented woman. Yet all these years I had been confined to the Chen manor for a heartless man, trapped within a tiny world, accomplishing nothing. The grievances, unwillingness, and anger suppressed for 5 years surged out like a bursting dam at this moment. I am not a helpless daughter of a disgraced official. I am not a caged bird that can only be slaughtered at will. I, Jiang Huay, have my identity, my pride, my responsibilities. Since Chen Jingyu is heartless, why should I be righteous? The day for the equal wife to enter the manor finally arrived. The entire Earl's manor was decorated with lanterns and festoons, filled with joy. Everyone had changed into new clothes, bustling about and shuttling between the courtyards. Guests filled the halls, laughter and chatter filled the air, as if celebrating some great joyous occasion. Yet I, the nominal countess, seemed to have been forgotten, sitting alone in the main courtyard, quietly gazing out the window. Several pear trees in the courtyard were in full bloom, their snow-white petals dancing lightly in the wind, like snow and like tears. When Chuntao came in and saw my calm expression, she couldn't help but call out worriedly, "Madam, are you all right? Chuntao is the only maid I brought with me from the Jiang family. She has been with me since childhood, close as sisters. She understands better than I do everything the Chen household has done to me, and feels even more indignant on my behalf." I gave her a faint smile and shook my head. "It is nothing. I am fine, madam. The guests outside are almost all seated. The master sent someone to urge you to go to the main hall." Chuntao hesitated, knowing that making me attend the ceremony was no different from publicly humiliating me. I stood up and smoothed out the plain-coloured dress I was wearing. This dress was what I wore when I married into the Chen household, simple in colour, modest in style, completely out of place with today's festive atmosphere in the household. But I deliberately wore it to remind certain people that today's joy is built upon what cruel humiliation. As I walked step by step toward the main hall with Shuntao's support, people passing by cast complicated looks at me, some sympathetic, some gloating, and some with the mockery of spectators watching a show. I kept my eyes straight ahead, as if I couldn't hear those whispered conversations. Inside the main hall, red silk hung high and candles blazed brightly. Chen Jingyu, dressed in a bright red wedding robe, stood spiritedly in the center of the hall. Beside him stood a woman with a graceful figure wearing a phoenix crown and bridal veil, her face covered by a red veil. Her features couldn't be seen clearly, but judging from her exquisite figure and the gentle aura she exuded, it was undoubtedly Su Wanya. When Chen Jingyu saw me, a flash of surprise crossed his eyes. Perhaps he hadn't expected that I would actually come. He frowned slightly, clearly somewhat dissatisfied with my plain attire, but he quickly covered it up, plastering a fake smile on his face and nodding at me. I walked straight ahead and stopped not far in front of him. The air was filled with the cloying sweetness of wedding candies and the rich fragrance of burning incense, yet it made me feel waves of nausea. Huay, you came, Chen Jingyu spoke. His tone carried a trace of imperceptible authority, as if reminding me of my status. I didn't respond to him, only took out a letter from my sleeve. On the envelope were prominently written 3 characters, divorce agreement. I handed the letter to him, my tone calm without a ripple of emotion. Chen Jingyu, our fate as husband and wife ends here. Please accept this divorce agreement. As soon as these words left my mouth, the hall instantly fell silent. All the guests' gazes fell upon us in unison. The originally noisy festive atmosphere froze in this moment, and Chen Jingyu's smile stiffened on his face. He looked at the divorce papers in my hand as if seeing something inconceivable. He didn't even reach out to take them, just stared at me in shock. Jiang Huayu, what are you doing? His voice was very low, tinged with anger and embarrassment. He probably thought I was deliberately humiliating him in public. I raised my eyes and looked at him with firm resolve. Exactly what you see, I am divorcing you. Nonsense. Do you know what day it is today? Do you know what you are saying? He finally couldn't hold back and roared in a low voice. His face ashen. Of course I know. My tone was flat, each word clearly reaching the ears of everyone present. Today is the joyous day when you marry your equal wife. And I, the former countess, have chosen this day to sever our marital ties with you. Chen Jingyu, he stared at me intently. His eyes were full of disbelief and a hint of panic that even he hadn't noticed himself. Don't think I don't know what you are thinking. You are just trying to use this opportunity to win sympathy and make me take back my decision. I am telling you, impossible. Su Wanya must enter the household today. He paused. His gaze swept over the shocked guests around us, trying hard to calm his emotions, then resumed that fake refined appearance, though his voice still carried some suppressed anger. Huayu, don't be willful. Today the house is full of guests. Don't let the Chen family lose face. Later on, I'll explain everything to you properly. Explain. I laughed out loud, that laughter full of thick mockery at this point. What is left to explain? Chen Jingyu, do you think that just because I am a helpless daughter of a convicted official, I can't survive without your Chen family, that I have nowhere to go? He didn't speak, but the contempt in his eyes already said it all. Many people present were thinking the same thing. In their view, Jiang Huay, a daughter of a convicted official whose family was raided and exiled, being able to marry into an earl's household was already an enormous blessing. Now she dares to make a scene about separation. It is simply digging her own grave. Shuntao. I didn't look at Chen Jingyu again, but softly called out to Shuntao beside me. Shuntao immediately stepped forward and handed me a heavy bundle she was holding. I took the bundle and placed it directly on the table in front of Chen Jingyu, making a dull thud. Inside here are all the account books of the Chen family's profits from the 5 years I managed the household, as well as all the dowry my mother left me when I entered the estate. Check it carefully. Is there even the slightest bit missing? My tone was icy, my gaze sweeping over all the whispering guests present. Jiang Huaye, am completely clean and honest. I never embezzle, and I never owe debts. Next, I took out from my sleeve an IOU I had written beforehand, which detailed all the expenses the Chen family had borne since taking me in 5 years ago, including my daily living costs, as well as the silver the Chen family had publicly claimed to have spent on handling my funeral affairs when the Jiang family was raided back then. A total of exactly 10,000 taels of silver. I placed the IOU on the table, then took out a thick stack of banknotes from the bundle and pressed them directly on top of the IOU. Here is exactly 10,000 taels in banknotes. I, Jiang Huay, today settle the Chen family's kindness of taking me in completely. From now on, you and I owe each other nothing. The moment I saw Jiang Huay slam the account books and dowry list hard on the table, I couldn't help but applaud. No crying, no clinging, just using solid evidence to silence all those who looked down on her. Being an honest person and acting with integrity, even if she has to leave, she'll do it with dignity, leaving no grounds for gossip. Chen Jingyu was completely dumbfounded. It is not that he didn't know I'd earned quite a bit of money for the Chen family over the years, or that my mother had left me some private savings back then, but he never imagined I could produce such a huge sum of silver to settle the so-called debt of gratitude on the spot. He had originally thought I was just throwing a tantrum and would eventually bow my head to him after all. Where could a woman like me with no one to rely on possibly go? I paid no attention to his shocked expression and walked straight toward the main hall entrance. Stop right there, Jiang Huay. If you step out that door today, don't ever think about coming back. Chen Jingyu finally snapped out of it. He rushed forward, grabbed my arm, his tone threatening. He still believed I was just being stubborn, throwing a fit. I turned around and looked at him as if he were a stranger, my voice cold and firm. Chen Jingyu, you are wrong. I, Jiang Huay, have never thought about coming back. From this day forward, all ties between us are severed. We owe each other nothing. With that, I forcefully shook off his hand and strode out of the main hall without looking back. Behind me came Chen Jingyu's furious roar. No need to mind her, she is just being willful. Once she calms down, she'll come back on her own. Where else could a homeless woman like her go? Her voice pierced through the noise, reaching my ears clearly. The corner of my mouth unconsciously curved into a mocking smile. He thinks I am truly homeless. He thinks I'll really come back. He thinks that I, Jiang Huay, only have this mere identity as a countess. He couldn't be more wrong walking out the gate of the Chen residence. The sun was shining brightly outside, the air carrying the fresh scent of soil and flowers, the long mist breath of freedom. Xuntao followed closely behind, holding a small bundle in her hands containing my few remaining changes of clothes and that jade pendant from cloud-hidden pavilion. Madam, where are we going? Xuntao asked worriedly. I took a deep breath, looked up at the azure sky, my eyes sparkling with an unprecedented light. To a place that belongs to us. We hired an inconspicuous carriage and quietly left the capital. Xuntao listened with her mouth agape, and beyond her shock, her eyes filled with hope and excitement. So Madam isn't homeless after all. So our Jiang family has such a background. Xuntao was so moved her eyes reddened. That master, he is truly blind. I only smiled faintly, saying nothing more. No is not the time to worry about these things. What I need to do is find the hidden agents of Cloud Shadow Pavilion as soon as possible and reclaim the power my mother left behind. Following the clues my mother left in her letter, I found a secluded tea house on the outskirts of the capital. The tea house was called Clear Breeze, and from the outside it looked utterly ordinary, even somewhat dilapidated. But when I stepped into the tea house and took out that jade pendant from Cloud Shadow Pavilion, an elderly waiter immediately became solemn and respectfully led us to a secret room in the back courtyard. In the secret room, a middle-aged man dressed in black martial attire sat upright. When he saw the jade pendant in my hand, he immediately knelt on one knee and said in a deep voice, "Subordinate Mo Yi pays respects and welcomes the young master's return to the pavilion." The title, Young Master, sent a shock through my heart, so my mother's words in the letter weren't false. Mo Yi gave me a detailed report on the current state of Cloud Shadow Pavilion. It turned out that after my mother faked her death and left the capital all those years ago, she didn't truly give up her position as pavilion master. Instead, she entrusted the pavilion's affairs to several trusted elders to manage and left behind a final order, If descendants of the Jiang family could return with the token, they would immediately be honored as young master, and when the time was right, could take control of Cloud Shadow Pavilion. As I listened to Mo Yi's report, my heart was filled with emotion. My mother had calculated flawlessly, planned every step carefully, and left me such a powerful backing. Yet I had been completely unaware and wasted 5 years. During these 5 years, has Cloud Shadow Pavilion's power changed at all? I asked, my voice carrying a hint of the awkwardness of someone newly grasping great authority. Mo Yi respectfully replied, reporting to young master, during these 5 years, under the management of several elders, Cloud Hidden Pavilion's strength has not diminished but increased. The 3 branch helms in the capital Jiangnan and the northwest have all been stabilized, especially the intelligence network which has infiltrated all sides of the court and the public. I pondered for a moment and slowly spoke. Good, from today onward, I formally take control of Cloud Hidden Pavilion. The first matter is to thoroughly investigate the truth behind the Jiang family being framed back then and find the mastermind behind it. A gleam flashed through Mo Yi's eyes. In the days that followed, I began to devote myself wholeheartedly to Cloud Hidden Pavilion's affairs, reading through mountains of intelligence reports, familiarizing myself with the contact methods of various hidden agents. Learning the arts of medicine and poison and various underworld rules, I discovered that my mother's bloodline seemed to flow within me. I picked up these complex matters extremely quickly, and could even soon draw inferences and propose unique insights. I was no longer that cautious and submissive countess who swallowed her grievances at the Chen manor. I had become the young master of Cloud Hidden Pavilion, a mysterious woman who controlled vast power and countless secrets. My temperament changed, my gaze became sharp and confident, and my actions became decisive and capable. And in the capital, Chen Jingyu was still immersed in his great joy. He thought I had just left in a fit of anger and would obediently return in a few days. After all, his Chen family's Earl Manor was a prominent household in the capital who would be willing to leave, but as the days passed one by one, I never appeared. At first, Chen Jingyu just felt he had lost face. He ordered people to search everywhere, but found nothing. He grew increasingly furious, thinking I was deliberately embarrassing him. Su Wanyu appeared gentle, considerate, and understanding on the surface, but privately she kept fanning the flames in his ear, saying I was fiercely jealous, didn't understand propriety. And now that I had left, it actually saved the Chen family trouble. Gradually, Chen Jingyu's heart also grew some resentment. He announced to the outside world that I had died of illness, using this to cover up the truth that he had been abandoned. However, as time went on, problems began to emerge within the Chen manor. The account books I left behind were clear, but neither Chen Jingyu nor Su Wanyu had experience managing household affairs. Su Wanyu only knew how to spend money, didn't understand how to generate income and reduce expenses, and Chen Jingyu was busy with official social engagements and had no time to attend to it. Soon, the manor's expenses exceeded its income, and people's monthly wages also began to be delayed. At the same time, many connections in the capital gradually distanced themselves from the Chen family. Although the Jiang family had fallen on hard times back then, I had spent many years in the capital, and through sincerity and skill had befriended quite a few noble ladies and socialites. Now that I had suddenly passed away, those ladies and young misses who had once received my kindness or been on good terms with me all felt that the Chen family was cold-hearted and unrighteous. They harbored many suspicions about the cause of my death, and naturally stopped associating with the Chen residents. Chen Jingyu also began to encounter his Waterloo in official circles. Those officials who once looked favorably upon him now became cold in their attitude, and even began to ostracize him. He was utterly perplexed, not knowing whom he had offended. Little did he know that all of this was quietly orchestrated by me, Jiang Huay, from behind the scenes. The intelligence network of Cloud Shadow Pavilion was enough to make every step difficult for him, and I also gradually infiltrated the capital's business and official circles through Cloud Shadow Pavilion's influence, paving the way for my future revenge. Half a month later, a sensational event occurred in the capital. The current emperor's most beloved 6th princess suddenly fell gravely ill and was bedridden, leaving the imperial physicians helpless. For a time, the entire capital was in a state of anxiety, fearing that if something happened to the princess, it would provoke the emperor's wrath. Just then, a rumor quietly spread throughout the capital. Deep within the Qingfeng tea house outside the city, there lived a mysterious medical immortal with superb medical skills who could bring the dead back to life. When this news reached the palace, His Majesty immediately sent people to invite them. When I, dressed in elegant plain white robes and wearing a half veil, slowly walked into the sixth princess's bedchamber surrounded by palace guards. Everyone held their breath. I carefully examined the sixth princess's pulse and checked her tongue coating. My eyes narrowed slightly. What the princess had been afflicted with was no ordinary illness, but an extremely rare and strange poison. This poison was colorless and odorless with a long incubation period. If I weren't well versed in the art of toxicology that my mother had taught me, it would be difficult to identify. I already had a suspicion in my heart. The properties of this poison were extremely similar to a long-lost poison called bone-eroding incense, recorded in the cloud-hidden pavilion, and this type of poison could only be concocted by the most elite poison masters in the martial world. The princess has been afflicted with a rare poison that requires special medicinal ingredients combined with silver needles to remove. My voice was cold and emotionless. The imperial physicians were at their wits' end about this and asked me one after another to take action. I didn't decline either, ordering people to prepare the needed medicinal materials and silver needles. Then I dismissed everyone, leaving only Xuntao by my side to assist. The acupuncture process was extremely dangerous, and I concentrated fully fine beads of sweat seeping out on my forehead. Fortunately, during these days at the cloud-hidden pavilion, I had crammed various medical techniques and toxicology, plus the medical and poison secret manuals my mother left behind, which gave me a deeper understanding of all kinds of difficult and complicated diseases. An hour later, I withdrew the silver needles and let out a long breath. The princess's complexion had recovered some color, and her breathing had become steady. The princess is out of danger now. She just needs to take medicine on time, and she'll recover completely in 3 days, I said calmly. The imperial physicians came forward one after another to examine her, and after confirming that the princess had indeed improved, they were immediately overjoyed. They hurriedly bowed to me in gratitude. When the emperor learned the news, he was even more delighted, and personally summoned me. Still wearing my veil, I knelt on the ground and declined the emperor's rewards. I only asked that the emperor investigate the truth behind the princess's poisoning and restore peace to the capital. Seeing how upright and selfless I was, the emperor praised me even more. He ordered the minister of the Court of Judicial Review to thoroughly investigate the case and sent people to secretly protect me. Through the intelligence network of Cloud-Hidden Pavilion, I had already investigated clearly that the sixth princess's poisoning was connected to the Jiang family case from years ago. The mastermind behind it all pointed directly to the powerful minister who framed my father back then, the current left Prime Minister Lin Yuanshan, and Lin Yuanshan was none other than Chen Jingyu's father-in-law and Su Wanyue's father. This plot twist came so unexpectedly, yet it made perfect sense. So my marriage into the Chen family was Lin Yuanshan's scheme from the very beginning. He wanted to use me to keep the remaining forces of the Jiang family in check, while simultaneously using Chen Jingyu's influence at court to pave his own way. Now that I had left the Chen family, his chess piece had lost its usefulness. This was precisely the beginning of my revenge. The next day, another shocking scandal erupted in the capital. The Chief Justice of the Court of Judicial Review, following the leads I provided, conducted a secret search at the left Prime Minister's residence and actually found a large amount of evidence related to the sixth princess's poisoning case. They even uncovered ironclad proof of Lin Yuanshan's years of corruption, bribery, and factional scheming. For a time, the court and the public were shaken, and the entire nation was in an uproar. Lin Yuanshan was arrested on the spot and thrown into prison. His accomplices were also implicated in the interrogation, falling from power one after another, and the entire left chancellor's residence was raided. As Lin Yuanshan's daughter, Su Wanyue was naturally implicated as well. She was demoted to commoner status and, along with her mother, was sent back to their ancestral home, forbidden from entering the capital ever again. When the news reached the Chen residence, it was like a bolt from the blue. Chen Jingyu was completely stunned. He never imagined that the equal wife he had just married was the daughter of a criminal official, and that his father-in-law was a corrupt official whom the emperor himself had ordered to be thoroughly investigated. The Chen Earl's residence was also implicated. Although it wasn't raided, the title was demoted, and Chen Jingyu's official position was stripped entirely. The once bustling Chen residence instantly became deserted, and those who used to flatter him now avoided him like the plague. And he finally realized that I, Jiang Huay, was not the helpless daughter of a criminal official he thought I was. My departure was not willful, but premeditated all along. My identity was by no means as simple as just being an earl's wife. He began frantically searching for information about my whereabouts. He sent people everywhere to find the medical immortal, but they could never find her. He regretted it, regretting his past callousness and lack of loyalty, regretting his contempt and insults toward me. He understood that if I was still there, with my abilities and connections, the Chen family would never have fallen to such a state. But there is no medicine for regret in this world. I, Jiang Huayu, am no longer that fool trapped in a small place, giving everything for him Chen Jingyu, in the secret chamber of cloud-hidden pavilion. I listened to Aunt Mo report on all the changes happening in the capital, my heart without a single ripple. This was merely the beginning, young master. Chen Jingyu now has nothing left. I hear he drowns himself in alcohol all day, haggard and withered, Mo Yi said respectfully. I set down the teacup in my hand and asked softly, "Then what about those who framed my Jiang family back then? How is the investigation going?" Mo Yi's eyes lit up. "Reporting to young master based on the clues you provided, we've confirmed that besides Lin Yuanshan, several prestigious families in the capital were also involved back then. They coveted the military authority and trade routes the Jiang family held at the time, so they conspired to frame them." My gaze became sharp. Very well, since they dared to make a move against my Jiang family, they should pay the price. The flames of revenge burned fiercely in my heart. But these flames were not blind. They came with clear rationality and meticulous planning. I would make them pay one by one, let them taste what it is like to have their families destroyed and loved ones lost. Half a month later, I put on an elegant deep purple dress, wore a gold-plated hair ornament, with a delicate face and radiant spirit. I no longer wore a veil because I no longer needed to hide. Today was the annual grand gathering hosted by the largest merchant association in the capital, the Tianxia Merchant Alliance, and I was invited to attend as an honored guest. When I appeared in the banquet hall, everyone's eyes turned to me. They all knew who I was. That mysterious immortal physician who had saved the sixth princess with superior medical skills, that extraordinary woman whom even His Majesty had personally received. Among those present were many noble families who had once been on good terms with the Chen family or had dealings with the Jiang family. They came forward one after another to strike up conversations with me, their eyes filled with amazement and curiosity. I moved through the crowd with ease, chatting and laughing, my demeanor elegant and graceful, nothing like the reserved and quiet countess I once was. I had completely transformed. Suddenly, I saw a familiar yet disheveled figure. It was Chen Jingyu, gaunt and haggard, his clothes in disarray. Long gone was his former glory. He was blocked at the banquet hall entrance by several guards, wanting to enter but ruthlessly turned away. He saw me, his eyes filled with shock, regret, and a trace of unwillingness. He stared at me blankly, as if he didn't recognize this dazzling woman before him. I didn't avoid his gaze. Instead, I took the initiative to walk over Long Time. "No, see." My tone was calm, with a hint of distant politeness. Chen Jingyu's lips moved, as if he wanted to say something, yet couldn't get out a single word. The complex emotions in his eyes were like looking at an unreachable dream. "Jiang Huayu," he finally squeezed out a few words, his voice hoarse. I smiled slightly, that smile carrying a trace of my former self, yet with added confidence and resolution. No need to be surprised, people always change. I am no longer that Jiang Huayu who let you manipulate her back then. I was wrong, Huayu. I know I was wrong. He finally mustered the courage to step forward, trying to grab my hand. My eyes turned cold, and Xuntao immediately stepped forward to block him. I said indifferently, "Between you and me, ever since the divorce papers were handed over, All ties of gratitude and obligation have been severed. Now you and I are nothing more than strangers. But the Chen family has fallen to such a state now. You help me. You once said you loved me. He was like someone grasping at the last straw, his words carrying a hint of pleading and humility. When I heard him mention the word love, I only felt it was incredibly ironic. Love. I let out a light scoff, the mockery in my eyes intensifying. Did you ever truly love me? What you loved was nothing more than the Jiang family's background. My ability to manage the Chen household for you, my unconditional devotion to you. And now, you no longer possess any of these. As for the Chen family, your current predicament is entirely of your own making. From the moment you decided to take in a second wife, from the moment you belittled and insulted me, you should have anticipated this day would come. My tone was ice cold, each word piercing to the heart. Jiang Huay understands it all too well. Chen Jingyu keeps saying he loved her, but what he loved was never Jiang Huay as a person. It was the Jiang family's influence behind her, her ability to manage the Chen household, and her unconditional devotion. These values were the prerequisites for his love. Once he felt he had a stable foothold and could marry a so-called compatible equal wife, he immediately turned his back on her, casting aside 5 years of devotion. I hate this type of exploitative person the most, those who treat others' sincerity as bargaining chips, their abilities as tools, and kick them aside once they've outlived their usefulness. Chen Jingyu's face turned deathly pale. He opened his mouth but couldn't utter a single word. He finally understood that I, Jiang Huay, had truly left, and in a way he had never imagined. I had completely left his world, and his bitter consequences were only just beginning. The creditors would come knocking with compound interest. The cold indifference of the capital's noble families who, in order to distance themselves from him before the emperor, would no longer associate with the Chen household, and even the minor officials and common people who had been oppressed by Lin Yuanshan's years of corruption and bribery, though he was demoted and left the capital, they would direct all their fury onto Chen Jingyu. Each and every matter weighing on him would make life worse than death. I want him to suffer in agony every single day while still alive. I stopped looking at him, turned and left, leaving Chen Jingyu standing all alone at the banquet hall, entrance like an abandoned puppet, completely drained of all colour. This was merely the prelude to my revenge. The real face slapping and reversal had only just begun. I was no longer a chess piece he could discard at will. I was the one holding the pieces. That night I returned to Qingfeng Tea House and told Mo Yi everything that had happened at the banquet. Young master, those aristocratic families in the capital now hold you in great awe, and your position in the Tianxia Commerce Alliance is secure. What do you plan to do next? Mo Yi asked. I walked to the window, gazing out at the desolate night scene. Moonlight poured down on me like water, casting my cold and resolute profile. The Lin Yuanshan case has uncovered many old affairs from years past, including the truth about how the Jiang family was framed back then. I said softly, Union Pavilion's intelligence network is sufficient to catch all the families in the capital who were involved in one sweep. Yes, this subordinate obeys your command. Mo Yi's voice was filled with excitement. He knew that Union Pavilion, silent for 5 years, was finally about to welcome its true master. 3 years later, the capital enjoyed crisp autumn weather. The bell from Taiji Hall pierced through the clouds, announcing a vindication that had been delayed for 8 years. I wore the Union Pavilion's specially made black brocade robe with gold threading, the cloud-riding jade pendant at my waist, and stepped into the great hall with steady strides. I was no longer the forbearing countess of years past, nor the veiled mysterious medical immortal, but the master of Union Pavilion who held ironclad evidence capable of shaking the court and countryside. Beside me, the sixth princess wore palace attire, personally guiding her over these 3 years. I had not only completely eradicated the residual poison in the sixth princess's body, but also helped her see through several palace assassination attempts. The two of us had long since formed a life and death bond. Upon the imperial throne, His Majesty looked at the thick dossier I presented, his expression growing increasingly grave. Inside the dossier was all the evidence Union Pavilion had spent 3 years investigating, the 7 aristocratic clans and 3 former court officials who participated in framing the Jiang family back then, along with the remaining followers of Left Chancellor Lin Yuanshan, their conspiracy to covet Father Jiang's military authority and the Jiang family's trade routes, the exchanged secret letters, the ledgers dividing the spoils. The testimonies of those involved. Everything was complete and irrefutable. Your Majesty, my voice rang clear and resounding. This subject woman, Jiang Huay, is the daughter of the former dynasty's renowned General Jiang Yi and heir to Union Pavilion. My father served the country with loyalty, yet was framed by treacherous people. The entire Jiang family was innocent, yet suffered injustice for 5 years. Today the evidence is conclusive. I humbly beseech your Majesty to clear the Jiang family's name and return justice to the world. The Emperor flipped through the case files and after a long while heavily slapped the dragon throne. Investigate, conduct a thorough and strict investigation. Anyone involved in this matter, regardless of their official rank or prestigious family background, shall be dealt with according to the law without exception or leniency. Once the decree was issued, the entire court and country were shaken. The intelligence network of Cloud-Hidden Pavilion and the executive power of the Court of Judicial Review complemented each other, and those corrupt forces that had entrenched themselves in the capital for years were uprooted like weeds, falling one after another. Properties were confiscated, executions were carried out, and the forces that once depended on these families scattered like monkeys when their tree falls. The atmosphere in the capital was completely purified. The Emperor not only issued a decree to restore the Jiang family's reputation and posthumously conferred upon my father the title of loyal and brave Marquis, but also returned to Jiang Huay all the Jiang family properties and symbols of military authority that had been seized back then. For a time, my name spread throughout the land. Some feared my power and influence. Some were moved by my filial devotion in vindicating my father, and even more admired that I, a mere woman, could stir up such storms and achieve revenge and vindication. Chen Jingyu's fate turned out even more miserable than I had initially imagined. After being stripped of his title, he was first retaliated against by Lin Yuanshan's enemies, who broke both his legs. Later, unable to repay his debts to loan sharks, he was sold by his creditors to work as a laborer in the mines. I once saw him from afar during an inspection of my properties. That young master of the Earl's mansion, who was once as gentle and refined as jade, now looked haggard and withered, dressed in rags, with murky eyes. Having long lost every trace of his former elegance, I withdrew my gaze and continued conversing with Mo Yi on this day. I rode a fine horse, accompanied by Shun Tao and disciples from the Cloud-Hidden Pavilion, and set out on the road to Jiangnan. The autumn wind swept up my robes, making them flutter loudly, just like my life that was no longer bound. I was no longer anyone's wife, anyone's appendage, but the one who controlled my own destiny, the pavilion master Jiang who protected my family and sheltered the people. Never be bound by appearances. Each and every one of us is far stronger than we imagine. Jiang Huayu once thought herself a helpless daughter of a criminal official, able only to survive by depending on the Chen family, not knowing that her mother had left behind such a powerful backing as the Cloud-Hidden Pavilion, and that the blood of a military family and a martial world overlord flowed in her very bones. She was trapped for 5 years by the identity of Countess and the label of daughter of a criminal official, until she unlocked her true self in desperate straits, ultimately becoming the pavilion master who strategizes with masterful skill. Just like in our lives, many labels and predicaments are merely superficial. You might be hiding undiscovered potential, unknown support behind you. There is no need to deny yourself because of temporary setbacks. Just like Jiang Huayu, only after breaking free from the perception of being a dependent could she display her talents and complete her revenge and vindication. Everyone has far more strength than they imagine.